Hey there nation, I am Commander Cheapskate and welcome to Way of the Underhive, your ultimate guide to Games Workshop's gritty and immersive skirmish game, Necromunda. Whether you're brand new to the dark depths of Hive Primus or a veteran looking to sharpen your skills, this series is your go-to resource for mastering all aspects of the game. From gang warfare to campaign strategies, we've got you covered. And on today's episode, we're doing a pretty interesting video. We're actually releasing a brand new series of rosters for Ashwaste Nomads, and this is kind of like a combination of both a updated roster video as well as a Hive Secundus video. And the reason why is because the brand new Tribes of the Wasteland just dropped this last weekend. A lot of new materials there for Ashwaste Nomad gangs to use in their campaigns. So this is kind of a combination of both. We'll show you guys some updated rosters we created for campaigns in the Underhives as well as out in the Ashwaste, and most importantly in the Underhells Campaign as well. And because this video will be a little more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that we can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So with that being said, let's go on and talk about playing Ashwaste Nomads and Hive Secundus. So first of all, the Underhells Campaign setting does provide some unique challenges for all gangs going into it. One of the big ones, of course, is visibility challenges. As you progress through the campaign, your visibility actually might reduce anywhere between 18 to 9 inches at a time. So because it's going to be very difficult for you to engage at longer ranges. Also, training as well as recruiting challenges are going to be present for most gangs as well. Ashwaste Nomads, not so much, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to the unique style which Ashwaste Nomads actually can be quite good to play in an Underhells campaign. You also got to worry about insanity conditions as well as roaming horrors. So we have these two new game mechanics where the environment is selfish trying to kill you, and the fact that we've got NPCs that you have to worry about as well on the tabletop. So the unique challenges that players are going to face, for example, is things dealing with visibility. So using things like photo goggles and infrasights are going to be extremely important for your game to use. Flares are going to actually probably be your best friend in this setting, just because flares are significantly cheaper than photo goggles and infrasights, and you can also illuminate areas of the battlefield, which could really help you out. At the same time, willpower is more important than ever before in this game because now the environment is trying to kill you with insanity. So having willpower in order to protect yourself is going to be really important as well. Like I mentioned before, trade and recruitment are going to be potentially a huge problem for a lot of players, but not so much for Ashwaste Nomads, and I'll explain why here in a second. In addition, when you get into the Underhells campaign, you have to choose one of two allegiances. You can either be an Archeotech's allegiance or a Malstrain allegiance on this one. Now, for an Ashwaste Nomads, you're actually quite limited on what allegiance you can take. You can only be a Malstrain allegiance. And the reason why is because, yes, you do get the Abyssal Ferryman teams for Archeotech hunters, but those are actually considered an alliance with an outside organization. And unfortunately, the way that the rules are written for Ashwaste Nomads, they can't take an alliances of any sort. So that automatically precludes you from being an Archeotech allegiance for your campaigns. That makes you Malstrain allegiance, which means you get 400 additional credits for mounted fighters or vehicles and that kind of thing. Now, that's actually to your benefit as an Ashwaste Nomad player, and I'll talk about why in the second when we get to the unique characteristics of an Ashwaste Nomad gang and how well they can actually operate in the Underhells campaign. At the same time, you're also going to worry about madness rules, which is basically the biggest significance you have to worry about, taking willpower tests to make sure your guys don't go insane from the isolating environment they're actually in. At the same time, both sides also suffer from trade as well as recruitment shortages, but like I said before, for Ashwaste Nomads, that's not much of an issue. And here's why Ashwaste Nomads and Hive Secundus are actually going to thrive a lot better in this campaign setting than a lot of the other gangs that's out there for them. And the reason why is because visibility. Visibility will actually be less of an issue, and the reason why is because, luckily for you, if it's a very specific fighter in your roster that can actually alter visibility rules, and that, of course, is your Waitari basically a Rotari Stormcaller. That guy could actually alter the conditions, the visibility conditions on your battlefield, especially if you equip them with a Stormcaller staff. You can actually increase or decrease visibility as you want to. So if you actually have this champ on the battlefield, you can actually extend visibility conditions for all, and granted it's going to give your enemies the same benefit as well, but it's going to be less of an issue for your gang, and it's not going to be much of a problem, unlike other gangs that don't have that game mechanic for them. At the same time, we have a lot of new upgrades from the Tribes of the Wasteland supplement that just came out that's going to really help out Ashwaste Nomads. One of the biggest ones, of course, are dealing with enemy vehicles being a huge issue, but now that we have access to the new electrostatic generator for blast weapons, that's going to be a lot less of a problem now as well. Now, like I mentioned before, for a Ashwaste Nomad, based on the rules as written, an Ashwaste Nomad gang can't take any allegiances whatsoever. So because of that, you will not be able to take Abyssal Ferryman teams, which means you can never be an Archeotech hunter in the allegiance for your campaigns. You have to be a Malstrain allegiance instead. But in the end, that actually works out for your benefit, and the reason why is because you get that additional 400 credits to purchase mounted fighters, the mounted condition, and Ashwaste Nomads have a lot of mounted fighters they could actually include in their gangs. It's going to really help you out in order to achieve that and actually to defeat your enemies that way as well. At the same time, with rules as written, like I said before, they talk about recruitment and trading being a huge issue for a lot of gangs. Rules as written, Ashwaste Nomads don't use the trading posts and they don't use the black market. If you look at the rules for the Underhells Campaign, it specifically says the trading posts and the black market. The Ashwaste Nomads use the Nomad trading post, which is a very unique system that they actually have for them. They have some very specific things they can purchase and very specific things they can't purchase based on this Nomad trading post. And because that's not mentioned in the Underhells Campaign, technically speaking, you can actually use your roster and your trading post anytime you want to, because you're not really tied to traditional stuff that other gangs are. You have your own little system, so because that's not going to be a problem as well. Now granted, someone could accuse us, of course, of exploiting loopholes within rules, but you know what? If Games Workshop didn't want that to be an issue, they should have been much tighter on their quality control for their rules writing, and maybe they won't have any loopholes that could be exploited. So let's talk about the playstyle for this gang real fast. So it's a good combination of close quarters battle as well as shooting. You can actually do both very well in this list. At the same time, lots of mounted fighters who could also dismount. I'm going to talk about that specifically, why I think that should actually be a thing. When it comes to fighters who are mounted, right, they have that born in the saddle rule, which means that they always have the mount that they have in their fighter card, correct? And one of the big issues that a lot of people say is that because of that, in the Underhives campaign, Ashwaste Nomads can't take their mounted fighters with them into the Underhells and the Underhives campaign. I disagree with that rule for one very specific reason. The reason why is because mounted fighters aren't vehicle crew. Now, vehicle crew have no statistics for movement, strength, toughness, none of that. All they have is their ballistic skill and their psychology stats, and they are attached to a vehicle. Granted, those guys should not be allowed to be dismounted and be able to fight. But for a fighter like your Dust Riders, for example, and your Batari Stormcallers, they have a set of characteristics for movement, ballistic skill, weapon skill, strength, and toughness initiative, just like any other fighter. So logic would dictate then that they can't ride their mounts into the battlefield. It's a simple issue of just, okay, they just get off their mount and fight on foot. Now you could argue, of course, that you're like, well, Commander Cheapskate, the rules state born in the saddle. Well, history is full of military units that are traditionally cavalry troops that fight from horseback or from vehicles, etc. But if the situation calls for it, they fight on foot just like any other fighter as well. And to think that that would not apply, like that real life idea would not apply to a fictional game, is ridiculous, right? So because of that, you should be able to use your fighters to just mount on the fight on foot. Now, to balance this a little bit, to appease the balance bandwagon people, I would recommend that you would have to have a miniature to represent that dismounted fighter to be on the tabletop. I agree, that should be a thing. But to say that you just can't fight because the rules don't allow it, that's kind of ridiculous. The same thing with, like, you do have your Neotechs who ride around on their graph cutters. Same exact situation. They're allowed to use those things in the Underhive, so you should be allowed to use your mounted fighters as well. If not, just have them dismount and fight on foot. At the same time, we're also going to be spamming the Ambush Master tactic card to give you guys some additional support in your gang as well, because Ashwaste Nomad gangs are specifically very small. They don't have very many people, so using the Ambush Master is going to help balance that out a little bit as well. Oddly enough, this gang is also going to be quite good at credit generation in all phases of the gang to kind of get you a lot of money to use to purchase on your Nomad trading post. At the same time, this gang could do very many things. It could do a lot of things. It could be stealthy, it could use close combat, it can infiltrate, it can shoot at long distances, it can engage enemy targets and especially vehicles. So there's a lot of things you can do with this gang as well. So let's start with your very first roster. This is going to be the Water Seekers, which is going to be a 1,000 credit roster for your campaign set in the Underhive. Like I said before, this video is kind of like a combination of update video as well as a Hive Secundus video. So for those of you guys who only want to play in the Underhive campaigns and like normal, this is going to be your 1,000 credit starting roster. You're going to be an Ashwaste Nomad gang, but you're going to be free from the Oil Run Stalkers Nation. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because of your warrior spirits that you can get access to. And depending on what nation of tribes you come from, it has a big impact on what you can do. I like the Oil Run Stalkers Nation just because they're supposed to be inhabitants of the Sump Sea, which is is right below Necromunda as well, so they can do a lot of things that can help them survive in the Underhives campaign. So a lot of cool things there. We're not really going to talk about warrior spirits too much, just because it's kind of random. You don't really get a choice of what you get, so more kind of like a narrative choice to justify why your guys are in the Underhive. At the same time, just a little bit of a buff to your gang using those warrior spirit rules. So first of all, we're going to start your leader. Your leader's name is called the End of Melting Dreams. He's a Katragi chieftain, so he costs 240 credits. He's got mesh armor for fire armor save, as well as a chain lance for close combat. He's also packing a blast carbine with electrostatic generator, so that way you get rapid fire attacks or blast carbine, and when you engage against enemy vehicles, regardless of the toughness, you wound on a 4-up. Now, people might be screaming, "Oh my god, wound on a 4-up!" Yes, that's the new game mechanics available now for Ash Waste Nomads. You still get your armor save like normal, so stop freaking out. And at the same time, you do have your Ash Cloak, your Sky Mantle, which you automatically get. Ash Cloaks are nice because they give you a 4-up save against battlefield conditions now, as well as immunity to them, which is quite nice. Plus, your Sky Mantle allows you to hide, and we're going to give this guy the Fixer skill, so that we get D3 times 10 credits every single time your leader survives a battle. You're also going to have a champion named Burning Moon. It's going to be a Nakutari Watchers, which costs 155 credits. This guy's got mesh armor for fire armor save, as well as a blast rifle electrostatic generator as well, so that way you can wound enemy vehicles on a 4-up or longer with a more accurate shooting with that weapon. He's also got Ash Cloak as well as a Sky Mantle. We're giving this guy the fast shot skill so that we can fire that weapon twice. Now up next we have the Dust Wraith, which is a Tarn Runi Warriors, which costs 235 credits. This guy's going to be your gang specialist. He's got mesh armor for armor save, as well as a charge caster with shock blasts and crack rockets. He's also got a rocket pack, so in case if you have to do an ammo check and you fail it, you can automatically reroll with that rocket pack. His pack's Ash Cloak and Sky Mantle is standard, and once again, this is going to be your guys' gang specialist. And then we have Embers at Dusk, which is another Tarn Runi Warriors, which costs 150 credits. This guy's got mesh armor as well as a blast carbine. He's also packing a treatment pouch, so that way you can act as a road dog for your gang in case anybody has to take a medical escort mission. He's also got an Ash Cloak as well as a Sky Mantle. Then our last two fighters, of course, are going to be Broken Spears. It's going to be a Shadar Hunter, one of the brand new hunters that are available now with 110 credits. He's got a 5-up armor save as well as a Trident, which is going to be great toxin attack with versatile trait attached to it. He's got an Ash Cloak as well as a Sky Mantle. He's got the Wasteland Ambushers rule, which means that any end phase he can actually infiltrate in, so long as he's 9 inches away. So a very versatile, deadly assassin type character for your gang. And because Shadar Hunters are so good, we're actually give you a second one. This is called the Ashwinder. He's a Shadar Hunter. It's going to cost you 110 credits. Equipped with mesh armor for that fire armor save, as well as a Venom Whip, because Venom Whips are also a great versatile attack with toxin attached to it, as well as Ash Cloak, as well as Sky Mantle and the Wasteland Ambushers rule. As soon as possible, I recommend getting these guys those Venom Sacks. That way they can take initiative tests to actually improve the deadliness and lethality of their toxin attacks. Now, unfortunately, as Ash Waste Nomad player, you have a lot of things stacked against you. You can't take any alliances whatsoever to help round out your gang. There's not a lot of brutes or hang-arounds or hired guns you can take either. But you do have a tactic card called Ambush Master, which that allows you to do is actually bring 3 Rutani Dust Runners onto your gang and equip them with about 20 credits worth of equipment. So we're going to have these 3 fighters in order to do that, in order to help you guys out. We have the Windburns, which is another Rutani Dust Runners with people with flak armor for 6 armor save, as well as a Scavenge auto gun, so that way you can do some medium range shooting. Ash Cloak as well as Sky Mantle as well. We then have Rusting Fangs, which is another Rutani Dust Warrior. This guy's got a Blast Pistol as a little rocket pack, as well as Ash Cloak as well as Sky Mantle. Now this character actually protects your specialist, the Dust Wraith, the guy who's armed with a Charge Caster. Protects him from being attacked, at the same time also helps him with ammo reloads if he needs to. And then last we have the Hidden Thorn, which is a Rutani Dust Runner, packing a stalking knife. That's all this guy has. And he's going to run around and try to stab people in close combat. He's got Ash Cloak as well as a Sky Mantle. So the next roster we're going to cover real quick is another roster for the Water Seekers. This is your 1,400 credit roster for your Ash Waste campaigns. And at the same time, this could be the basis for your 1,400 credit starting roster for your Underhells campaign as well. I've changed them just slightly a little bit just because I chose a different warrior tribal nation for your gangs to come from. So for those of you guys who are going to be playing in the Ash Waste, I suggest you take the Grey Waste Walkers nation, just because a lot of the tribal warrior spirits that you can use have a lot to do with environmental effects that really help you out in the Ash Waste. And not to mention, narratively, it also fits for this gang as well. Now this roster has some slight differences from our 1000 credit roster because you got that additional 400 credits. And the first major change is your leader. The End of Melting Dreams is going to be your Katragi chieftain. This time costs 195 credits. He's got mesh armor, and this time packing a chain lance for close combat weapon and a scavenge stub gun as a backup weapon. He's got an ash cloak as well as sky mantle as well as the evade skill, so that way you could actually have an enemy suffer -1 hit against him at ranged combat. As soon as possible, upgrade this guy with a dustback Helomite for 60 credits, so that way you can lead your dust runners in close combat and attack enemies on the flanks. Once again, Burning Moon actually makes a return at 155 credits, equipped exactly the same way as the 1000 credit roster, and he does exactly the same thing as before. We have a new addition to the gang. His name is called the Blackwind Howls. He's a Waitari Stormcaller for 175 credits. This guy's got mesh armor for 5 armor save, as well as a scavenge gun, stub gun for shooting attack, as well as a Stormcaller staff so that way he can alter visibility rules and also use in close combat as well. He's got an ash cloak as well as a dustback Helomite. He's also got the Born in the Saddle special rule, Call the Storm special rule with that Stormcaller staff, which takes a double action to adjust visibility conditions, and we're giving this guy the fixer skill so that way you can generate income for your gang as well. Another new addition to this game is going to be the Ashen Claws, which is a Tarnaki Dust Rider. It's going to cost 135 credits. Packing a Chain Lance, he's also got Ash Cloak as well as a Dustback Helomite. He's got the Hot Headed as well as Fast Learner skill. I recommend equipping this guy with a Blast Carbine, so that way he gets automatic rapid fire, and then of course equip that later on with an electrostatic generator, so that way you can wound enemy vehicles on a 4-up. Another new addition to this gang is going to be called Stalks the Fallen Girders. This is going to be another Tarnaki Dust Rider. This guy's got 135 credits as well. It was exactly the same way as the previous Dust Rider, with Chain Lance, Ash Cloak, Dustback Helomite, Hot Headed, as well as the Fast Learner skills. And like I said before, use this guy exactly the same way as you would the previous fight that we talked about earlier. Then we have the Dust Wraith, which is another Tarnaki Runny Warrior, which is going to cost 235 credits. This is the same special that we talked about before. It's Armor the Chargecaster from the 1000 credit roster. He's going to do exactly the same role with this gang as he would for the 1000 credit roster that we discussed earlier. Embers at Dusk also makes return. What makes him so special is because he's got that treatment pouch in order to protect and also do medical escort missions for your gang. Broken Spear, the Shadar Hunter, also makes return, equipped exactly the same way as before and fulfilling the exact same roles. And the Ashwinder also makes a return as well. Your second Shadar Hunter doing exactly the same thing before with that 1000 credit roster. And because you have a severe lack of alliances with other gangs, and you can't do that anymore, and you also have some hindrance for things like brutes and hang-arounds and the other kind of hired guns you can normally recruit. Once again, we're taking the Ambush Master tactic card, having the exact 3 Brutani Dust Runners as before, the Windburns, the Rusting Fangs, as well as Hidden Thorn, and they'll be doing exactly the same thing as your other previous 1000 credit roster. So up next is going to be your very first Underhells Campaign. This is going to be the Water Seekers with a 1,400 credit starting roster for your Underhells Campaign. These guys are going to be Ash Waste Nomads once again, but this time they're taking the Dustwall Crawlers Nation. And the reason why we're taking that specific nation is so that way you have access to those warrior spirits. It's actually quite conducive for Underhells Campaign because a lot of it has to do with close combat, which is quite important in the Underhells Campaign since most of it is close quarters battle oriented as well. And at the same time, narratively speaking, that's what they are. The Dustwall Crawlers are actually Ash Waste Nomads got cut off by the Dustwall, and so they're stuck in the Hive Secundus exclusion zone. And once again, these guys are going to be a Malstrain allegiance. And the reason why we're taking Malstrain allegiance is because, once again, you can't take alliances at all. So because that you can't take a Abyssal Framing team, so because that you automatically default to being a Malstrain allegiance. And like I mentioned before, this is going to be exactly the same roster we just got done talking about for your 1400 credit roster for the Ash Wastes, just because it's exactly the same role and they do exactly the same thing. The only difference between this roster and the previous one we just got done talking about is that you're the Dustwall Crawlers Nation this time with different warrior spirits, and that's the only real difference between them. Now, for those of you guys who want to play a Malstrain Corrupted Gang as your Water Seekers, they're going to have this roster as well. I'm going to warn you guys right now, it's exactly the same roster pretty much for the most part as the previous one. We just have some minor tweaks specifically to your leader. Your leader is the only one that actually has any real changes in this roster. Your leader, the End of Melting Dreams, is going to cost you 255 credits, but this time they were taking away his Dustback Helomite. He caused the same exact amount of corners, but he's kind of moved around his equipment a little bit just to make him a little more close combat oriented. He still got his mesh armor for 5 armor save, and we're giving this guy a blast carbine with electrostatic generator so that way he can engage enemy vehicles and wound them on a 4-up with rapid fire, which would be extremely valuable for you to do that. He's also packing a Savage Scalp gun for a backup shooting attack and a long blade for close combat so that we can do parrying and fight with 2 weapons in close combat. Still has a Sky Mantle, but we're upgrading this guy to a Psyker because he is a Malstrain corrupted leader, and we're giving him the Catalyst ability, which allows you to have any and all fighters within 12 inches. Once you cast this ability, all fighters within 12 inches can do a basic shooting action or a basic fight action before they go out of action. That's going to be kind of a nice way for you to kind of get some payback on enemies before your characters die. And of course, it's got the evade skill for that -1 hit against for ranged combat as well. And like I said, this is the only real difference between this list and the previous list we mentioned before, just because there's no point in repeating those things because I kind of explained how they pretty much work in the earlier parts. So we have one more bonus roster for you guys, and this is the Water Seekers at 1,650 credits for your starting roster. Now the reason why I decided to make this roster is because I've been noticing a lot in the community online, and on Reddit, as well as forums, on Yak Tribe, and same thing with YouTube, how a lot of players are actually a lot of arbiters allowing their players to make 1,250 credit rosters, kind of like they originally did from the Hive Secundus box set. When you actually got that box set originally, they actually made your gangs at 1,250 credits to start off with. It wasn't until the Book of Desolation came out that they dropped that to 1,000 credits. So because a lot of people are using that 1,250 baseline to actually make a lot of campaigns, and if you are going to play a campaign that does allow that, I figured I'd just make this list real quick for you so that way you could use that for your gang. Once again, you're going to be an Ash Waste Nomads game with a Dustwall Crawlers nation because narratively it fits, and plus a lot of the warrior spirits would be beneficial in that kind of a campaign setting. You're going to be an Malstrain Allegiance automatically, but if you want to, you can take a Malstrain Corruption if you want to, and you can add some Malstrain elements to your gang at any time in order to help you guys out. If you want to do that, I mean, that's entirely your choice if you want to. Being a Malstrain Corrupted gang allows a lot more flexibility, but if you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine too. This list works either way. Alright, so first of all, your leader, the End of Melting Dreams, your Katragi Chieftain, comes in at 255 credits, still has mesh armor, still has chain lance, still has a scavenge stub gun for shooting, still mounted on their Dustback Healomite so that way you can run around with your Dust Riders. He's got Ash Cloak as well as Sky Mantle as well as the evade skill so that way he's harder to shoot against at ranged combat. Burning Moon, your Noctu Tari Watcher, makes a return again at 155 credits, exactly the same way with his electrostatic generated upgraded blast rifles so that we can wound enemy vehicles a lot easier. Now here's where the big difference comes in. The real big difference actually comes in with your 2 additional Stormcallers you now have available to this gang as well. And that's what makes these guys just a little bit different than your other previous lists up to this point. So the Blackwind Howls and the Red Storms Rising are equipped exactly the same. They're both Watari Stormcallers at 175 credits. Both have mesh armor as well as Scavenge Stub Guns for shooting attacks. Both have Stormcaller staffs. Both have Ash Cloaks, Dustback Healomites, Born in the Saddle, Call the Storm special rules, and they both have the Fixer skill. Now, the reason why the Fixer skill is nice, so that way you generate a lot more income for yourself, for your gang, so that way you can spam that new Nomad training post to get the materials you need to recruit other fighters and also get those materials as well. At the same time, the real reason why we're taking these guys is because then you can spam that Call the Storm ability. You could really alter the visibility conditions of the battlefield now. You can either make them greater or lesser depending on whatever situation you're running into. So this is a nice way to help you kind of control battlefield conditions and make that visibility roll a lot less impactful for your gang, because let's face it, it's one of the benefits of being an Ash Waste Nomad gang. Alright, up next are your 2 Tarnaki Dust Riders, the Ashen Claws and Stalks the Fallen Girders. They're both equipped exactly the same. Both have chain lances as well as Savage Stub Guns. Both have Ash Cloaks as well as mounted on Dustback Healomites. They both have the Hot-Headed as well as the Fast Learner special rules. The idea behind these guys, of course, is to flank your enemies, attack and expose flank, use close combat and destroy your enemies with those powerful chain lances by charging at them with those weapons. After that, of course, are 2 warriors, the Dust Wraith as well as the Embers at Dusk. Both of them make a return. Your Dust Wraith, of course, is the character's armed with the Charge Caster, who's also your gang specialist. And once again, Embers at Dusk makes also return as well, and this time also packing a treatment pouch, so that way they can take care of fighters in case they get injured. And once again, our two Shadar Hunters, Broken Spear and Ashwinder, they also make an appearance in this list as well, which is exactly the same as before in the other lists, so that way they can ambush your enemies and also attack them in close combat. And finally, we're once again spamming that ambush master ability with the Wind Burns, Rusting Fangs, as well as Hidden Thorns, so that way you get additional bodies on the battlefield to kind of help you to dominate on the battlefield as well. And that pretty much makes up your 1,650 credit roster for this one. So in conclusion, we have a new combination of updated roster for your gangs, as well as a Hive Secundus roster as well, because the new supplement Tribes of the Wasteland came out. So we're using a lot of the new tools and abilities in that book to kind of help you dominate in all settings in Necromunda, whether you're fighting in the Underhives, in the Underhells, or in the Ash Waste, or in the Emerald Succession for that matter as well. And yes, I am aware that we are exploiting loopholes in the rules that are written so far. You know, we're getting past the fact that going to the trading post and black market is going to be difficult for most gangs, but for your gang, not much an issue because you don't use those. You use the Nomad trading post, and I know that is exploiting a loophole, but you know what? That's what Games Workshop's quality control is for on their end. I mean, I'm sure they have teams of peoples whose entire job is to make sure and double check their work to make sure that, you know, we don't run into problems like this. Unfortunately, Games Workshop does a really bad job of quality control when it comes to their rules. I mean, we've seen supplements with things missing in them, with their rules not being available, or we have some really bad misprinting in some cases as well. We also seen some situations where they actually meant it just this weekend on the when they talked about the Adepticon preview, where they actually left the entire special character out of one of their codexes for Warhammer 40k, and they actually realized they made a huge mistake when they did that. So Games Workshop needs to sharpen a little bit more on that quality control if they don't want people to start exploiting some of the rules that they have in their supplements. Also, yes, I have talked about the prospects. I did kind of rant a little bit about those guys, about how they should be able to fight dismounted, and I still stick by that, and your arbitrator should as well, because otherwise, if they weren't supposed to be fighting dismounted, why include those other statistics in their characteristics, all right? And that's the reason why I think they should be allowed to do so. But anyways, with that being said, you guys, if you have any suggestions for some new videos or some new lists you'd like to be seen on this channel, please leave a comment in the comments box down below. And if I like your idea, I'll make a video on it and give you guys credit at the exact same time. So you guys have it. That's good for this one. As always, please remember to like, comment, and or subscribe. You guys' input is valuable to us as always. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. I am Commander Cheapskate. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.